Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we are pointing our lens at a 35-letter German word that looks less like a piece of vocabulary and more like a typo.
Right, a typo that somehow gained sentience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like it just woke up and decided to declare war on the English language.
It really is intimidating on the page.
It is. So for you listening, we are unpacking a single, short, but just incredibly dense source text today. It's excerpts from an article titled The Philosophical Punch of... Well, let me try to get this out of the way early.
Look for it.
Okay. Weltanschauungbackpfeifengesicht.
You know, you're actually incredibly close for a first attempt.
Wait, really?
Yeah. It's Weltanschauungbackpfeifengesicht.
Yeah.
You kind of have to, lean into the sheer weight of it.
Oh, man, I'm already sweating just looking at it. But our mission today is to decode this massive, frankly, ridiculous linguistic monolith.
Because it holds a remarkably potent idea, right?
Right. We want to discover how it serves as a gateway to understanding the disruptive, aggressive, and entirely unapologetic spirit of pulp fiction.
It definitely changes how you interact with the world around you.
So for you listening, just get ready to look at the media you consume in a completely different light. Okay, let's unpack this.
To get to the philosophy, we basically have to perform a little linguistic surgery.
Grab the scalpel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because this isn't, a naturally occurring word you'll find casually tossed around in a Berlin coffee shop.
Right. Nobody is ordering a latte and saying this.
No, not at all. It is a manufactured Franken word. It's explicitly stitched together from two very distinct, very recognizable German concepts.
And I imagine the friction between those two halves is where the magic happens.
That is exactly where the entire meaning lives.
Okay, so I'll take a swing at the first half because it's a term that gets thrown around in academic circles quite a bit. Weltanschauung.
Yes.
It translates roughly to a comprehensive worldview, but it's heavier than just having an opinion or a perspective.
It's foundational.
Right. It's a fundamental cognitive orientation. Like when an academic writes an 800-page treatise on the structural nature of reality, that is their Weltanschauung.
Or when an entire society operates under a shared set of baseline assumptions about existence.
Exactly. It is the architecture of how you perceive human life and the universe. So we are firmly planted in the ivory tower with this half.
It is the ultimate highbrow concept. I mean, it demands serious, quiet, contemplative study.
Grab your tweed jacket.
Right. But then we hit the second half of the word, which, it rips us straight out of that quiet contemplation and tosses us headfirst onto the pavement.
This is the fun part.
It is. The second half is Backpfeifengesicht. It is a piece of wonderfully untranslatable German slang.
I love when languages have words for very specific, strange feelings.
Oh, German is the best at that. The literal translation here is a face badly in need of a slap.
A slappable face.
Or simply, a slappable face.
The juxtaposition there is just completely jarring.
It really is.
I mean, the first half is Kant and Hegel debating the infinite cosmos, right?
Yes.
And then the second half is just a chaotic, gritty barroom brawl. You're slamming highbrow, comprehensive philosophy directly into lowbrow physical aggression.
It's like putting a tuxedo on a professional wrestler.
That is a perfect analogy. It forces you to treat a raw, visceral spectacle with a level of academic reverence that it absolutely hasn't earned.
Which feels like a very deliberate, very subversive joke.
So how does the author of our source text translate the whole thing?
Well, the author leans entirely into that subversive joke. When you stitch them together into Weltanschauungbackpfeifengesicht, you get, quote, a worldview that slaps you hard in the face.
Wow.
Or, as the text translates it into its native pulp terms, it's the operating philosophy that the only way to look at the world is to punch it in the face.
Okay. I have to challenge the mechanics of that, though.
Okay, let's hear.
How do those two totally opposing concepts actually function together in practice? Because a worldview is inherently conceptual, right?
Right, it's abstract.
It's cognitive. It's in your head. But a punch in the face is intensely, violently physical.
Very physical.
So what does a worldview you have to physically assault even look like? How do you punch a cognitive framework?
Well, answering that requires us to look at exactly where this word came from. Because understanding who wields this philosophy really explains how it functions.
Oh, who wields it?
Well, this isn't some centuries-old proverb handed down by Stoic philosophers in the Black Forest.
Shocker.
Right. It was popularized by a 20th century pulp fiction media project known as Talos magazine.
Ah, pulp fiction. That explains the punching.
Exactly. The word serves as the central thematic pillar for a series of adult pulp storytelling art, and comic project.
And the publisher behind those projects, it tells you everything you need to know about the tone.
Oh, absolutely.
They were created under the banner of Gromagon and Tetragrammatron Press.
Just an amazing name.
I know, just rolling those syllables around in your mouth, Gromagon and Tetragrammatron. It sounds like two ancient, warring, alien deities just decided to abandon the cosmos and start an indie boutique publishing house.
It is wonderfully, aggressively absurd.
It really sets a perimeter, it tells the reader before they even open the cover that subtlety is just not on the menu.
It establishes a boundary of pure pulp theatricality. And that tone is driven entirely by the architect behind all of this work, an artist and creator named Iason Ragnar Bellerophon.
Okay, the source text gives him a biographical description that I honestly cannot stop thinking about.
It's quite the intro.
It introduces Iason Ragnar Bellerophon as, and I'm quoting here, the mystical outlaw rebel badass itself.
With a double D in badass, mind you.
Of course. It is just sheer, unadulterated audacity. He isn't introduced as an author or an illustrator.
No, not at all.
He's introduced like a heavy metal frontman stepping onto a stage surrounded by pyrotechnics.
And that persona is a crucial part of the mechanism here. By adopting the title of a mystical outlaw rebel badass, the creator is throwing out any pretense of academic seriousness.
Which completely recontextualizes the 35-letter word we've been dissecting.
It totally flips the script.
Yeah, because when you initially hear Weltanschauungbackpfeifengesicht, you assume it's some dark, cynical nihilism born out of, European existential dread.
Right, you picture a guy in a turtleneck smoking a cigarette.
Exactly. But knowing the creator's loud, rebellious persona, you realize he's weaponizing the language of the intellectual elite.
Yes, precisely.
Of course, a self-proclaimed mystical outlaw would invent a worldview based on punching reality.
He's using this massive, polysyllabic, academic-sounding German word to demand that the establishment take his loud, garish pulp art seriously.
It's so smart.
What's fascinating here is the psychological bait and switch he is executing. We are culturally conditioned to assign intelligence and gravity to complex language, right?
Right. Big words equal big thoughts.
Exactly. So by wrapping a cheap, thrilling punch in the velvet robes of a massive German compound word, he forces the audience, and perhaps the critics, to pause.
To actually pay attention.
Yes. He gives a sense of grand philosophical importance to something that is inherently designed to be fast, cheap, and sensational.
He is using the architecture of high culture to smuggle low culture into the conversation.
It's a brilliant conceptual Trojan horse.
He's totally winking at the audience, acknowledging that this is lowbrow pulp, but demanding we treat it with the gravitas of a global ideology.
Exactly.
But, even understanding that linguistic trick, I'm still kind of stuck on the deeper artistic mechanism.
What do you mean?
Well, beyond just mocking the ivory tower, what is the actual function of wanting to punch the world in the face? What is the purpose of this aggressive posture?
Well, the source text provides a very explicit explanation for the why of pulp. And it comes down to the environment it was born into.
Okay, break that down for me.
The text tells us that this expression captures the loud, garish, and aggressive nature of 20th century pulp magazines. And it's not just violence for the sake of violence.
That's a reaction.
Yes, a specific targeted reaction. The art and storytelling are designed, quote, to abruptly disrupt a gray, grueling reality with explosive, subversive entertainment.
Oh, wow. A gray, grueling reality. That phrasing carries so much psychological weight.
It really does.
If you think about the psychological toll of navigating modern life, the feeling of being a tiny, insignificant cog in a massive, uncaring machine.
The daily grind.
The repetition, the endless commutes, the sense that your environment is entirely monotonous and completely unresponsive to your existence.
It's draining.
It is a deeply gray reality. Your brain essentially turns off its higher functions just to survive the sheer boredom of the routine.
And when a human being is trapped in that state of cognitive numbness, subtle art simply cannot reach them.
No, it bounces right off.
A quiet, contemplative poem or a delicate watercolor landscape isn't going to penetrate the fog of a grueling routine. The intellect is basically asleep.
So you have to wake it up.
Exactly. You have to bypass the intellect entirely and hit the nervous system. You need a disruption.
The mechanism of visual shock. It makes perfect sense.
Walk me through it.
Well, imagine you are zoning out on one of those soul-crushing Tuesday commutes. You're staring out the window of a train, everything is concrete, the sky is overcast, and you just feel completely detached from your own life.
We've all been there.
Right. And then suddenly, a garish, neon-colored pulp comic explodes into your line of sight.
Yes.
We are talking bold, heavy inks, unmixed primary colors, wild, impossible action sequences. The visual language itself acts like an artistic defibrillator, shocking your nervous system and jolting you back into a state of awareness.
The defibrillator is the perfect analogy because the goal isn't just to entertain, it is to resuscitate.
To bring you back to life?
Exactly. The colors, the violence, the absurdity, they are all calibrated to administer a specific dosage of cognitive shock.
Wow.
The philosophy of Weltanschauungbackpfeifengesicht posits that when the world presents you with a gray, oppressive, slappable face, the only moral artistic response is to deliver the blow.
Which brings this entire concept right to your front door. So what does this all mean for us? For you listening right now, navigating your own routine, how often do you feel the weight of that gray reality?
It's a great question to ask yourself.
Think about the media you consume when you are feeling the most ground down. Are you seeking out quiet contemplation, or are you looking for that neon jolt?
Usually the jolt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The idea of using art not as a comforting blanket, but as a literal weapon against dullness, completely reframes why we crave intense experiences. Like, what stands out to you about the idea of using art as a literal weapon against a dull reality?
It changes everything.
Have you ever consumed a piece of media that felt less like a story and more like a necessary act of aggression against your own boredom?
If we connect this to the broader cultural picture, it aggressively redefines the value we assign to entertainment.
How so?
Well, culturally, we tend to categorize entertainment, especially lowbrow genres like pulp, action, or horror, as passive escapism.
Right, it's just popcorn.
Exactly. It is something you use to just turn your brain off. But this philosophy argues the exact opposite mechanism.
That it turns your brain on.
Yes. Entertainment, in this context, is an act of rebellion. It is an aggressive intervention against the grueling nature of human existence.
I love that.
The artist is looking at the crushing mundanity of the world, identifying it as a Backpfeifengesicht, a slappable face, and delivering the antidote through explosive storytelling.
It totally validates the loud and the garish, like it strips away the guilt of enjoying trashy art.
You don't have to feel bad about it.
Because it argues that sometimes a loud neon-colored explosion is philosophically necessary for our psychological survival.
That's medicine.
We require the shock just to remember that we are alive, that we can still feel things, and that the universe can still surprise us with its absurdity.
And by encapsulating that entire visceral, necessary experience inside a massive academic German compound word, our mystical outlaw creator achieves a dual victory.
A 2-for-1 punch.
Precisely. He slaps the gray reality awake with his art,
Yeah.
and he simultaneously punches the academic establishment by proving that profound truth doesn't only live in dusty textbooks.
It lives in the comic books, too.
The true Weltanschauung, the actual functional philosophy of surviving daily life, is found in the explosive joy of a pulp magazine that refuses to let you sleepwalk through your day.
We really went on a journey with this one.
We covered a lot of ground.
We started this deep dive looking at a 35-letter word that frankly looked like a typo. We deconstructed Weltanschauungbackpfeifengesicht, unpacking the friction between the ivory tower worldview and the pavement-level reality of a slappable face.
The high and the low.
Right. We traced its origins to the beautifully absurd Gromagon and Tetragrammatron press and its mystical outlaw architect,
Tyson Ragnar Bellerophon.
the badass himself. And ultimately, we uncovered a highly functional philosophy about using explosive, subversive art as a defibrillator to actively disrupt a grueling reality.
But taking that concept and applying it to our current environment raises a really fascinating complication, one that builds directly on the core tension of the source text.
Okay, lay it on me.
The text highlights that this philosophy was a necessary reaction to a gray, grueling reality. The cure for the grayness of the 20th century was the neon slap of explosive, subversive entertainment.
Right, the visual and narrative shock to the system.
But look at the cognitive environment we navigate today. The reality we inhabit is no longer gray.
No, it really isn't.
It is entirely relentlessly saturated. We carry screens in our pockets that deliver an endless, algorithmically optimized stream of loud, garish, explosive entertainment every waking second.
That is so true. The neon never turns off.
The explosions are constant.
The defibrillator never stops firing. So if the whole point of the pulp aesthetic was to break through the gray, what happens when the gray is completely gone?
That's the problem.
If the world is already screaming at you in primary colors 24/7, then screaming back with more loud, aggressive art isn't a disruption anymore.
Not at all.
A neon slap in the face in a neon world just equals conformity. It just becomes part of the noise.
Which forces us to ask, does the Weltanschauungbackpfeifengesicht philosophy still function today?
It almost feels like it can't.
If the purpose of the philosophy is to deliver a subversive slap that jolts us out of our cognitive numbness, adding more noise to a deafening environment fails the mission.
Right.
The mechanism of subversion has to adapt to the environment it's trying to disrupt.
That is a staggering realization. If the world today is fundamentally characterized by relentless, aggressive stimulation, then to truly punch our current reality in the face, you don't use more neon.
Yeah.
You just unplug the sign. The most subversive, jarring, shocking thing you could possibly deliver to a modern audience, the true disruption of our saturated reality, is total, absolute silence.
The absence of stimulation becomes the new slap in the face.
It forces you to completely rethink the tools you use to interact with the world. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can build to jolt someone awake isn't a massive, complicated structure of noise and action.
No, it's the opposite.
Sometimes the most aggressive, necessary thing you can offer is the quiet space you force them to sit in.
It's something to really mull over.
It really is. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep looking closely at the world around you, keep questioning the noise, and keep seeking out those unexpected jolts in your own worldview.